There we go. Hello, everyone. Welcome to another Mental Health Monday here on Even Tacos Fall Apart. I am really excited to have y'all here. And Quantum, give that bot just a minute. I had to restart it. And so it should be working here in just a second. And that is what runs the question queue and all the other commands. So if you have any questions for tonight, as we do every week, feel free to pop those into the chat. Exclamation point Q. We will get them answered here. But I am so excited because joining me again today for the second time is Dr. Jodie Eckleberry-Hunt. She is a board-certified health psychologist who specializes in helping people become their best selves by shutting down negative self-talk with spicy language and healing laughter. And we've already been doing a little bit of that before the show, so I'm here for it. Jodie is passionate about boundaries, calling out bullshit, and empowerment. She's the author of several no bullshit books, including Getting to Good Riddance, a no bullshit breakup survival guide, which is what we're diving into today. So welcome back to the show, Jodie. Really appreciate you taking the time.
I'm excited to be here. This is one of my favorite topics.
Yeah. So if you guys are looking to connect with Jodie, I've got some links for y'all. Let me post those in the chat. Quantum says, I have some happy news. I got married on Christmas Eve. Congratulations. That is wonderful. I hope that you enjoyed your celebration if you had one. I hope that you had some private moments as well of celebration, but congrats. That's fantastic.
And we're not talking breakup for quantum.
Correct. Correct.
Yes,
Yes.
I was shaking my head like, no, I'm still glad that that person joins us.
Yes, absolutely. And I'll say I read this book, and whenever I was reading it, probably most of y'all know I'm in a wonderful, loving relationship. And when I started reading it, I was like, "Listen, babe, I'm gonna read this book. It's not about us." And he was like, "That's okay. I get it. That's fine. Whatever." So, as I was reading it, it's one of those things that I was just like, "Wow, a lot of this information. First of all, would have been really helpful right after my divorce." And a couple of other breakups as well. But second of all, like reading through it, I was able to go through and be like, okay, did I really heal from that? Is there some more work that I need to do? And I think the answer for myself was mostly, okay, we're good, everything's fine. But it was neat to have the kind of not checklist, because there's not like a checklist for it, but just that external little validation of, oh no, I did things I feel like the right way. So do you ever have people who come to you with that and be like, listen, you really helped give me things to watch for?
Absolutely, because a lot of times when people have gone through a breakup, they're very, very concerned. They don't want to make the same mistake. They
Yeah.
don't want to repeat a pattern. So sometimes it is checking in. And just to throw out, I have had a fair number of people read this book and they talked about breaking up with toxic friendships or
Ooh.
unhealthy relationships, that it's not just romantic stuff. So I probably should throw that out.
Yeah, yeah. No, I that's really, really interesting because I could see a lot of the advice kind of applying to non-romantic friendships too. So we're just kind of you've been here before. We're going to kind of dive right in. You have written several books, including a new one, Take That Shit Over There, which sounds really fun and fantastic. I know last time we talked about spicy self-help in general. A lot of your books cover that, but we mostly focused on the badass stories and move on motherfucker topics. So you wrote those. What made breakup specifically the next topic you felt like you should tackle?
I'd wanted to write this book for a long time because it's one of the top issues people seek my help for. They're sad because of some relationship.
Yeah.
Pardon me. Sometimes it is they're contemplating breakup. Sometimes they've had a breakup. Sometimes they're not quite sure, and we get to the point where they're thinking breakup. But regardless, I think that there's a predictable reaction. And again, it's grief, but then there's anger, the stages of grief. It's not necessarily one right after the other, but bouncing back and forth. But they're predictable reactions, I guess. And I am a huge believer in homework. So I wrote the book, and by the way, I wrote it during the lockdown period of COVID, and
Mm,
I was stimulated because of the number of people who are coming in saying, I'm done. Like all that togetherness pushed some people to, the edge. Like, I don't want to be with this person anymore. It's too
yeah.
much. And so I had that extra time to write as well. But I wanted to give people something to read, something to do in that initial aftermath of a breakup. People are lost and they want to feel better ASAP. And so I really wanted to make it sort of a somewhat of a recipe. You don't have to follow it step by step, but a recipe like these are the things you can look for. These are the things you can work on to help people feel like they were getting some momentum or some footing back.
Yeah. Okay, so that's good to know because then it wouldn't have been available to me. I kicked my ex. I tried to get my ex out starting in 2018. I finally like threatened to get the police involved to get him out of the house at the end of 2019, and then COVID happened a few months later, and I'm really convinced that like one of us would not have survived if we had been together in the lockdown, to be quite honest. And so it wouldn't have been there for me anyway, but but yeah, I mean, it definitely is whenever you go through a breakup, especially if it was a long relationship, your part of your identity is tied to that. So you're not only grieving the end of this relationship, but it's part of yourself that you're grieving and that you're kind of getting through that change and everything. And I think your book reflects that too.
Yeah, and I think what you're hitting on is super important. It is the grief, I'm missing this person, or the anger and
Yeah.
all of it mixed together, but also what's wrong with me? Is there something wrong with
Yes.
me? Will
Yeah.
anybody want me? This questioning, like, am I going to be alone? So you're hitting at there are lots of big issues being
Yeah.
grappled with.
Yeah. I think one of the things that really got to me when I was reading your book, and I know this is probably getting too in the weeds, but part of what you said in the book was, and this goes back to like you're losing part of yourself, but also the what's wrong with me piece, because it's like I can recognize that it was a toxic relationship. I still kind of miss it. And it's like you're not missing the toxic relationship part of it. You're missing this bigger thing. And that one, whenever I was going through it, I was like, oh, I did have quite a period of time where I was like, why am I missing this asshole? Like, why am I missing him? And I feel like I shouldn't be. I know in my head, like it was not a healthy relationship. It was not a safe relationship in my case. Why am I missing that a little bit? And so it was one of those things when I was reading and I was like, yeah, I went through that.
Well, and sorry, I have this runny nose all of a sudden.
It's okay. The weather everywhere
I
is psycho right now.
That's exactly right. And what you're getting at, I think is super important that maybe one of the differences in my book, compared to other sort of popular self-help is the idea I get into attachment. And what you're talking about, like people say, "What's wrong with me if I want this toxic relationship?" People who have the ability to attach, which is normal, that's what it goes back to babies and mamas and um, the ability to survive in this world. Attachment is not something you flip off and on.
Yeah.
And so it takes a while to detach, but I think that that's what you're hinting at. You just don't need to blame yourself, though, like with
Yeah.
a pathologizing lens, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah. And I was in plenty of therapy also. So I had a great therapist who was helping me through everything. And she had helped me arrive to that point as well. But now you touch a lot on this move on motherfucker philosophy in multiple of your books, but you really hit it in this one. How does the breakup specific advice and getting to good riddance differ from the broader move on motherfucker approach?
So I think you'll just have to take my word for it when I say that I do use humor as a healing element. And when I share things with you, I guess I want to say that I don't make fun of people and I try to be judicious in my use of humor, but I use it in terms of healing. This idea of it is moving on, but saying good riddance to somebody who doesn't want to be with you
Yeah.
because you deserve somebody who wants to be with you. Or if you're the breaker upper, you deserve somebody who you want to be with. So the
Yes.
good riddance isn't, it's kind of meant to be kind to yourself like a friend and to induce a little bit of laughter, but it's good riddance to something that's not healthy and good in your life.
Yeah. Yeah. And that comes through really well. So you've seen a lot of people, you said this was a common thread, right? Things you kept hearing from your clients and everything. What's the number one piece of bullshit people tell themselves when they're going through a breakup?
I think that the number one thing is the blame. Like,
Mm,
it was my fault. I did something wrong, and replaying, like, if I'd only done this differently. And I'm not giving people a free pass, but a relationship going bad much of the time is a two-way street. Like, there are
hmm
two people involved. That being said, there are those elements where you've got somebody who's maybe more of an abusive person or somebody who's sociopathic, and the issue was that other person.
hmm
But, or I think that the most bullshit thing is feeling like it's all my fault.
Mm,
And I don't know that that's helpful.
yeah. Yeah. But that's easy. It's easy to say that, right? It's easy to be like,
It's controllable,
it's my,
right?
yes,
If it's
if it's my fault, it's something I can change, it's something I can do, right? But now you brought up good riddance and you talk in the book a lot about good riddance rather than closure. Can you kind of talk us through why that mindset shift matters?
yeah, there, and I recognize that there's always going to be a subset of people who disagree with what I'm going to say, and that's valid. Like, not everybody has to agree with me. I don't know that you're always going to have closure.
Mhm.
I think that there's a good amount of people who really say, I just need to understand why. And I usually come back and say, and then how would that help you? Um, because there is a good chance that you will never fully understand why. So
Yeah.
the good riddance again is saying it's not, this is not meant to be. This is not a good, healthy relationship for me. Or even if it's not right now. So maybe it's just not working now, but you're kind of keeping the door open because it was a healthy relationship. The timing's just not right now, but it's not for this moment. And I would love it if everybody could have closure. I just don't know if it's possible. So how do you move on in spite of that? And it's good riddance.
Yeah. It's really tempting to want closure and to want to understand. I think the understanding part is so tempting because again, it for me went back to that control. If I could understand what happened, if I could understand where things went wrong, then I can keep it from happening in the future and that kind of thing. And it's like, well, I mean, it's not really something that's achievable in this case, or in some cases, and in my case, not safe to really seek out and try and figure out with the help of the other person who also isn't going to be honest anyway.
Well, you bring up a great point. Like, for example, if somebody is in an abusive relationship and they want to understand why is that person abusing me, let's say excuse me, let's say I help the person and we delve down this path and the other person was abusive because they were abused. Does that make it okay?
Right.
No. Like, okay, now you understand why. Does it really change where you are?
Yeah. Yeah. So when I was reading your book from like the very beginning, it was just fantastic. And even in the introduction, you add this clarification, and I want to read part of it. You said in the introduction, you clarified that this book isn't about beating up the ex-partner, and it isn't about blowing smoke up your ass about how blameless you were. So how do you help readers through this book take accountability without spiraling into that self-blame?
Step by step. And
Mhm.
I start right off. And how do you soothe your nervous system? How do you get yourself up out of bed when you feel like you can't? You feel
Mhm.
like you can't put one foot in front of the other. So how do you clear the smog and set up the supports that you need so that you can think clearly? Once you can do that, then it becomes a matter of making sure that you stay on that path. And I have lots of suggestions for that. But then is the deeper dive, right? Then is the deeper dive of what have you learned about love? What have you learned about relationships and your self worth? And what were the red flags that either you missed or that you denied?
Mhm.
Which is a biggie because a lot of people, once you get rid of the smog, they can usually admit, yeah, I didn't think that was right, but I gaslit myself. I told myself, oh, you're just being too picky. And my response to that is usually really like, too picky for your life partner? Like, I
Yeah.
don't think you can be picky enough, right? So I think that it's a stepped process and you just can't dive into it too quickly. The one of the biggest mistakes I think people make is they're so eager to get rid of the pain that they jump into something else
Yeah.
before they've had a chance to really dissect what went wrong.
Yeah. And I know that's something that I was definitely going to ask about is kind of the how long should you spend getting over someone, but then also how do you know when you're done healing and done getting over that person and when you should date again?
So there's no hard and fast rule, although I usually tell people generally give yourself 6 to 8 months of healing.
Mm.
And it, this is something people get so annoyed with me about. I, I do meet people where they are, but when people pay me for an opinion, I give them my opinion. And the 6 to 8 months, the clock doesn't start ticking until you go no contact.
Mm.
So when people tell me I've broken up, but we're still texting every day, we're still calling every day, I'm like, you haven't broken up yet.
Yeah.
Okay. Breaking up means no contact for 6 to 8 months so that you can clear that smog out, right? Um, and how you know you're done, you don't care anymore. Like, it's not, I hate this person and, I'm stalking their social media and doing all that stuff. You know you're done when I wish them well, whatever that is, as long as it's away from me.
Yeah. Yeah. So I get that. I get the no contact thing. What about in the case where you're still in contact, either because you're trying to remain friends with the ex, or in my case, what if you have a kid together and you have to talk for co-parenting reasons? How do you handle that?
Yeah. And that's a great question. And I'm glad you reminded me of that. Because I said the no contact, that is a
Yeah.
luxury,
Yeah.
right? There are situations where you can't go no contact. So, ordinarily, uh, as I mentioned, I meet people where they are. People ask my opinion. I'm not a believer that you can be friends with somebody after you've broken up. Now, if it is possible, it's down the road. Like
Yeah.
you have to sort through your feelings first. So, the no contact is if you can have that and it just is going to I think extend your recovery period. And plus, if let's say that you meet somebody else and they know that like you're besties with your ex, particularly if you had a very intimate relationship, the other person's going to, and that tends to cause issues. Now, if it's co-parenting, by the way, the number one predictor of a child's well-being after a breakup is how well the two parents get along,
Mm.
or in front of the child at least.
Yeah.
So, uh, when possible, and you can only control part of that equation. So, I think it's just as business and matter of fact as you can be. And some people communicate through apps, and there are rules. It just becomes so messy because both people have to be cooperative, and you can't control the other person. So that's a much more challenging question.
Yeah. Yeah, I feel like if you're just talking logistics about the kid, and then you're right, you have to be at least not hateful and hurtful in front of your kid. Like that's I very much am I just try and be as blank as possible when I'm around my ex. I'm just like, I'm not engaging with you. Here's what you need to know. That's all you get from me, and then I'm gonna be over here doing whatever it is at my kid's event. And it's worked for me, which is great. Some people that doesn't work for them, and they do have to go through all these parenting apps and everything, and it can get really complicated. It can get really difficult. But yeah, it's one of those things that it's like, okay, well, I mean, I still have to talk to my ex every couple of weeks, but it's a text here and there to say, okay, you're on your way. Great, cool. You're gonna be late again. Great, cool.
Yeah, and I do try to remind people who are working with me, sitting with me, I try to remind them that whenever you're reactive, you're giving the person what they're looking for. So
Yes.
if you
Yeah.
really want to get their goat flat and then have a place to release the pent up anger that you have in a healthy way.
Yeah, yeah, as blank as possible. That's always my goal. And that doesn't mean that there's not feelings. It doesn't mean there's not a lot of anger still, but I never show that in front of my kid, and what he does, I don't know, but it's definitely one of those like I've tried to make that as separate as possible and not my business. So,
Yeah, and I do feel like it's important to add, give yourself grace.
yeah.
You're not always going to be at your best,
Mhm.
and that doesn't mean it's a complete disaster or you're a failure as a parent. We're all humans. We're
Yes.
all humans.
Yeah. So going back a little bit, how do you know when it's time to stop trying to save a relationship that you're currently in and when it's time to start planning your exit?
Well, I think that it is a matter of relationships are complicated. Humans are messy. So I don't think that it's reasonable to think as soon as you hit a rough patch, that should be over. Or if you have times when you're unhappy, there will be times when you're unhappy that you need to work through things. So I think if there is abuse, and by the way, I go through that in pretty significant detail. I never tell people who are in an abusive relationship just leave. It's not that easy.
Yeah.
And that also can increase somebody's risk of a significant risk to self and others. So, but I like to say if you're in an abusive relationship, then that deserves maybe some planning and thought about um, how that's affecting you and your life. I think that if you are persistently miserable, not able to function, you're not the person that you want to be. You've tried to change the situation, you and the other person, and it's not going anywhere. I maybe contemplating. You're hearing a lot of wishy-washiness. It's hard for me to give a pat answer to that.
Yeah.
I think that it is a compromise between you've tried and you've given it a good shot and it's not going anywhere. Um, but also recognizing that relationships take a lot of work. Happiness
Yeah.
takes a lot of work.
Yeah. And I understand why there's so much wishy-washy there because it really is like uh, every relationship is going to be different. And of course, like that's how that goes. And it's like you can't know until you're in it. I will say one thing, and I just want to kind of underscore like you mentioned you would never tell someone in an abusive relationship to just leave. That is something that a lot of people will say. And it's one of the reasons that I share my story. Like, my divorce isn't even my most recent breakup, but it's the one that I reference almost all the time because it was the hardest, it was the messiest. And it took me several different times to try to leave. And it took a full year, like I mentioned earlier, to get him actually out of the house. And it's one of those things that there's a statistic out there, and I've heard it a couple of times, of it takes up to 7 times for people to leave their abuser. And so if you are in one of those relationships and you're listening to this and you're like, God, if only it was that easy, or I've tried to leave and it didn't work, like we get it. I get it. I get it. It's hard and it's messy, and it's not something that it's just like, oh, okay, well, it's a breakup. That's all that it is, because that's not all that it is in those instances. So anyone listening who's in a relationship and they're like, oh, this doesn't really apply to me, like, please know, I get it. Jodie gets it as well. It's just one of those things that it's not easy for you, and I see that and I understand that.
Yeah, and I will add, so in my other life when I'm not an author, I am a board member for the YWCA in Flint, which is also the tagline is empowering social justice and women. And it houses the domestic violence shelter or interpersonal violence, whichever term you like. And so I always like to remind people that no one deserves to be abused. But, or and, I should note, no one deserves to be abused, and there are programs aimed at helping you take care of yourself in a safe way.
Yeah. Now, you write that anger is often where people find the energy to get better, that it kind of sits in that anger. Can you talk about why channeling anger is productive rather than something to suppress?
So yeah, I do say I actually like the anger phase the most, because it's energizing, like
Yeah.
that experience of intense anger. Now, the people who have the intense sadness, it's heavy. Like, it's so hard. It feels like you've got lead in your shoes. And you don't want to do anything. But the anger, boy, you want to do something. It's just figuring out what you're going to do that's going to be helpful versus you're going to regret it.
Yeah.
Um, and that's the challenge, helping people, because there is, I get it. There's a little bit of satisfaction about revenge, but in the end, it doesn't give you what you think it does.
Yeah. And it could cause more problems also,
Cor- Correct.
depending on how you go about it. That could
Yes.
cause more problems. But yeah, I mean, I feel like the anger part is one of those things that I was raised, emotions are bad, right? Like, just in general, emotions are bad. And so it was very much like, I try to suppress a lot anyway. It's one of the things that I had to work through in therapy, is being able to, in a healthy way, express that. And but anger is the one that I'm like, no, I can express the anger through these different ways of doing it that aren't directed at the wrong people and all of that. And it really is the most, like, you go outside and you scream, it feels good.
Yeah, it's interesting. I think it now there's not like a hard and fast rule for everyone, but women are taught it's not okay to be
Mhm.
angry, and men are taught that that's the main emotion that is okay,
Mm,
and it's hard for both of those genders.
yeah. Can you share, obviously without identifying any details, but can you share a story of someone who really nailed the concept or the mindset of good riddance?
Yeah, so I'm going to be super careful and try to just use they. Trying. I'm going to try to do that. So I had a person who came in and they found out that their significant other was cheating,
Mm,
and this person did a lot of questioning. Was very devastated, uh, but said the other person wasn't willing to admit, even though there was rock solid evidence, right? So there was a lot of
mm,
gaslighting. And this person came to me and said, I can't be with somebody who's not going to be honest. Because, by the way, I do say in my book, I don't think that cheating is a deal breaker, because it really depends on why. But this person who wasn't willing to take responsibility for the behavior until later, this person said, "I don't want to be with that person," even though this person really loved their significant other still. Because again, that attachment, right? The love
Right.
doesn't go away. You're in love with the person you thought you were with versus the person you're actually with. So all this other stuff comes out. And the person who I was working with stuck with it. I mean, through the slop and the mess and the all of the things that the person did to ignore the red flags, right? Like that was very painful work to acknowledge, yeah, I did that to myself.
Mm.
And then got to a really good place. Maybe a year went by, got into a new relationship. And just as soon, and was very excited. And just as soon as the relationship also showed some red flags, left it. Said, I've learned, I'm not going to do that again, and was able to cut it off. So I guess um, I know I'm using they, and I even confuse myself at a certain point, but what I'm trying to illustrate is it can be very beneficial to go through the painful parts
Mm.
because you avoid the pain in the future
Yeah.
by dealing with it now. And you can learn and grow. I think I had mentioned to you before that tends to be one of the biggest fears. People are saying, I don't ever want to do this again. I don't want to make the same mistake. But if you go through all of that work, it reduces the possibilities that you're going to find yourself in the same spot. And the person who was referencing was in a new relationship. It wasn't the same issues, but
Hmm.
it there were similar things, right? So anyway,
Yeah.
that wasn't too convoluted.
No, no, I get it. And I going through what I went through in particular definitely gave me a new perspective on what I wanted in a partner and what I was not willing to accept in people. And I actually didn't let any relationships progress to the point where some of the major red flags could even show up because the tiniest red flag would show up and I'd be like, bye.
Yeah,
Which,
and that's it.
well, but for a while I was sitting there going, am I, like you said earlier, am I being too picky? And it's like, no, no, I'm not.
And what you just highlighted is super important. I hammer home to people if I can get them to this place, it's so helpful. And that is making a very conscientious list of the things that you are not willing to negotiate around in a relationship, the things that aren't important to you, and the things that maybe there's some middle ground, but you it's having a roadmap. Like even how you look for a
Yeah.
job, right? There are certain jobs like I want to make this amount of money. I want to same thing in a relationship. And I take all the I do laugh in the book. I say I take all the fun out of it. I make it an intellectual process, but it will save you because once your heart gets involved, it becomes super hard to think straight.
Yeah, yeah, it really does. Hey, Blue Bedlam, how are you? Blue Bedlam says 488 is best in slot. That's my partner is 488. And you're not wrong. You're not wrong. Because I did make this list, and I made this list in therapy, and I think I made it back in like 2021. I forgot about it. I forgot all about this list. And then now I'm in this relationship. And just a few months ago, I was like, oh, I made that. I forgot about that. And I pulled it up and I was just like, tick, 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 tick. Great. Okay, good. We're all good. Everything's perfect. Like even the things in like the bonus column were perfect. So it's like, awesome. Good. But yeah, I mean, I did really use that exercise to kind of evaluate when I was dating people. Is this something that I'm not willing to it's not, is this something I'm willing to put up with? It's like, is this something that's supporting a healthy relationship that I want to be in? And so I think before I had really framed it as, oh, I can put up with that. And after much therapy and everything, I got to the point where I was like, it's not what I'm willing to put up with. It's what I want in a relationship. And it doesn't sound like a big difference, but it was a big difference for me for sure. So let's talk a little bit about boundaries. What are the most common boundary mistakes people make post breakup?
Well, this question is super easy. They think that they can still be on social media, following the other person,
Mm,
seeing what they're doing, um, that they can still communicate on a regular basis when they're in pretty significant pain. It that contact just keeps things stirred up in their brain. It's so hard to heal when all of those reminders are still there.
yeah, yeah. And even just the social media part, I think that's it's easy to be like, oh, we could still follow each other on social media. That's no big deal. But then you're seeing their content, you're seeing their posts, you're seeing their life a little bit, or what they want to put out there as their life,
Yeah,
which
exactly,
is even worse.
exactly.
So we talked about identity earlier and identity kind of being tied to these long-term relationships partially. How can someone rebuild their identity after a long-term relationship ends?
Well, it takes a lot of work, and I think that you hinted at it, or we were hinting at it in our conversation about being very clear about what a person wants in a relationship and what they want for themselves, but reminding themselves, what are my values?
Mm,
And making sure that your life is aligned with the things that are important to you. I just think and being patient, and know what, I've never met anybody who is really patient around healing after a breakup.
no, we want it done. We want it to be done. We want it to be done now.
And I get it, right?
We want it to be done yesterday. I think that it's so. I mean, you can start to kind of rebuild, right? And you can start to kind of heal. Is there anything specific that someone could do to help reconnect with themselves after a breakup?
I am the biggest fan of expressive writing, and
Mm,
that's because there's a whole neuroscience behind that. And I think that some of the deeper healing that I ask people to do, go back and look at a picture of yourself. And what would you say? Look into the eyes of that person. And would you say some of the judgy, nasty, terrible things that you say to yourself? Well, hopefully not. Most of the time, I don't know if I had anybody who's ever said, yes, I would. But they're looking into that person's eyes and writing about and reminding yourself who that person was. Maybe the hopes and dreams that they had before this relationship. So, doing some writing, just reconnecting. A lot of times people talk about losing a sense of self in a relationship, maybe previous hobbies. It's very in women in particular who have been married and had kids, and then there's a divorce. Oftentimes, I'll ask them, "Well, what do you like?" And they'll say, "I don't even know. Like, my life has just been so much
yeah.
taking care of other people that, I mean, a long, long time ago, I used to like to listen to music. I used to like to do these things." So it's just, I think it takes some reflection, takes some time.
Yeah. And I know that sometimes, like when I was a teenager, I did a lot of, not a lot, but I did some glass bead making and I really like to make bracelets and jewelry and stuff. And that wasn't like right before I started to get married or anything, or right before I got married or anything, but it was definitely a younger hobby. And excuse you to hit me with his tail. Oh my gosh. And it's one of those things that after I got divorced, I was like, oh, maybe I should try that again. And I kind of picked it up a little bit, and then I was like, this isn't really it. So I would encourage also, if you want to reconnect with something, I actually wound up reconnecting a lot with painting. And I do a lot of painting now. And it's like it's one of those things that you gotta try a couple of different things too. If writing isn't helpful for you, Try something else that you used to like, but also give yourself the space to not like it still. Like it's okay to be like, I used to make jewelry and now I don't like to make jewelry. It's fine. That's okay. There's other things you can find other things. It's all right. You could start playing a different game. I've actually reconnected lately with some older games that I used to play, and I'm like, hey, I remember why I liked playing these games. So, what's one spicy piece of advice you'd give to someone who's struggling to let go?
Oh, spicy advice. Yeah, so I am going to be spicy. Why the fuck do you want to be with somebody who doesn't want to be with you? Or why the fuck do you want to go back to something that's not making you happy? In 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 my 50s now, and I came across this meme or something. I don't know what the word I'm looking for. And it says, I always thought getting old would take longer. And I think we live as if we have unlimited time until we don't. And happiness is something I haven't yet been enlightened that there's a do-over. So if you only get a bit of time to be happy, be happy. There are no awards for martyrs. Uh, be happy.
Yeah. Martyrs, not murders. I heard murders at the very first.
Martyrs.
I'm like, no, there's only punishment. I watch many documentaries that say that.
Hopefully, there's punishment for that.
I mean, not always, unfortunately. Some of the documentaries are like, and we still can't have justice for anything. Yeah, it gets a little depressing. Well, we're coming up kind of on the end of the questions, and I'm realizing that my children have stolen my magic wand. They stole it the other day. Uh, is it out there? Okay, hold on. My oldest is going to bring it to me.
Oh, service.
I know. We use it. It's multi-purpose, right? We use it for this, obviously, but then also, thank you. Well, don't bring it to me and then be a butt about it. I mean, thank you. So we use it for this stream, right? But then also we use it to inform the snakes that we're not feeding them, because like we open their enclosures and it's like we're either getting this open so we can feed you or so we can handle you or move you about or something. So we use this and we just like touch them with it to be like, it's not food time, hello. So the kids wanted to get the snakes out the other day, and so they were using my magic wand for that, which is hilarious to me because it's this little, got this pink star on it and it lights up and it makes me laugh. All of
I've
that.
learned something today. I didn't know that you could cue a snake like that. So.
Yeah. I mean, most of our snakes are just like, no big deal, whatever. We do have a couple who are very always ready to eat, and they would never harm us on purpose, but they are always ready to eat. And so we have to like let them know that, hey, not food. Remember me, a human and not food? Great. So we use the little magic wand to just be like, it's not time. It works really well. So all right, well, it is time for the magic moment of the stream. If you could wave this magic wand and eliminate one common opinion or misconception surrounding mental illness, disabilities, or talking about mental health, what would it be?
The cat likes it.
I know.
I would think that the thing I would want people to know is that there's really no normal. I think that we have this idea that these people have it all together and we're not normal, and we judge ourselves so harshly. There's a range of what normal is, and I think that we would get so much farther if we gave ourselves the grace that we give to other people. Hopefully that we're giving other people. I mean, there are some people who are judging other people a little bit too much too. But I guess what I'm saying is we're all human, and we're never going to get it all right. but I don't know that it's helpful to be saying there's, a normal. I mean, some things, you shouldn't be doing. I don't mean to be that wishy-washy, but just be
Yeah.
kind to yourself.
Yeah. No, I think the point about like it in we've all heard the treat others as you would want to be treated. But if you reframe it a little bit and be like, am I treating the way that I treat others? And that's the kind of the like sometimes the answer is no, and there's the thought for you. But I love that. That's a wonderful magic moment. Well, I'm going to post your contact links one more time, and then I'll just open it up to you if there's anything you want to mention, anything you want to throw out there. I know you have a new book. If you want to talk about your new book a little bit, that'd be great. And I'll just turn the floor over to you for a minute.
Okay. Well, I obviously have a lot of things to say. So my new book, Take That Shit Over There, is different. I try to make all my books a little bit different, but it's bite-sized lessons in boundaries, and not just boundaries with other people, but also boundaries with yourself when you maybe are overstepping, you're giving too much advice. And it is how to set better boundaries. The one thing I think people get messed up with is they only want to help, but not recognizing where the line is between when you should be helping and what is actually the other person perceiving as helpful, or what do they really need. Is here's the thing: the more we do for other people, and by the way, I am a believer in community, so I do believe in helping one's neighbor. However, when we do too much, we prevent people from growing. So there
Mm,
is a space. And oftentimes that's a talk I'm giving to parents who are wanting to do too much for their kids. I think that's great, but how about giving them a chance to innovate and figure something out on their own? So I'm not saying you shouldn't care, shouldn't do for other people, but boundaries is about self-reflecting and saying, I know I could, but should I? And what are the downsides? What are the benefits? And of course, I try to do it with humor, saying things like, well, if you notice your fingers pointing outward, maybe you need to turn it around and do a little bit more of this. Because we got a lot of this out there too.
yeah. Yeah. It sounds really interesting. That's one that I probably could use because I, as y'all know, have a child who is officially an adult, and sometimes I gotta let him just live his life a little bit. And it's like it's not on me to decide everything for you anymore. But I'm so nosy and so I'm so
Yeah,
mom.
yeah, and all that's normal. All of that's normal, and it comes from a
Mhm.
good place.
Yeah.
It's just learning to dial it back a little bit and settle
Mhm.
yourself down.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. Well, thank you so much, Jody, for being here and for going through that topic with us. Like I said, I truly, truly enjoyed your book, and I'm not even going through a breakup. So if I can enjoy it, anyone can enjoy it. So highly, highly recommend you'll click through on those links, get Jody's books, and review them. Also, if you go and you read any of these books, make sure you leave a review for it. Make sure you leave a rating for it. And just all of those things are what help other people find it. So make sure you're doing all the steps, but most importantly, go get the books and read them. But again, Jody, thank you so much for being here. Really appreciate you taking the time.
Thank you for having me. Have a great evening.
Yeah. All right, folks, give me just a second to disconnect with Jody, and I will be right back. Stick around.